Hello friends, I welcome you all in one more knowledgeable interesting video. Today in this video we're going to talk about HRA exemption, housing rent allowance exemption. Yes, and connecting sections for claiming this exemption is section 10, 13A, and one important rule is also there, that is rule 2A, right? So I'm going to tell you some relevant case laws relating to HRA exemption. We're going to talk about the concept, how to calculate it, how to claim it, and what are the documents that you need to have if you really want to claim HRA exemption, and what are those necessary documents that you must have in your possession if in case your return will be scrutinized or income escaping assessment notice you will get. So what documents you must always have to claim HRA exemption so that you easily come out of the scrutiny proceedings without any additions or disallowances. So the important rule is rule 2A as well as section 10, 13A that importantly talks about exemption of HRA. Please mind this is exemption, this is not deduction, right? So how to calculate it and what amount of the HRA will going to be exempt is mentioned in rule 2A, right? As per rule 2A, the least of the following is exempt. What we need to check is the least of the following. Least of A, B, C and D of the following is exempt from the salary under section 10, 13A and does not form part of the taxable income. So what it is? It is exempt income. What it is? It is exempt income because specific exemption is given in section 10, right? And how to make calculation is given in rule 2A, right? So the first factor is the actual HRA received from the employer, right? The amount of HRA that is received from the employer is the first parameter that you need to check. Please keep this thing in your mind that if you are not receiving any HRA component in your salary, then you are not eligible for HRA exemption, right? There must be some HRA component in your salary, then only you are eligible to claim section 10, 13A exemption. Point number B is for those who are living in metro cities. For those who are living in metro cities generally used to pay higher rents. So the percentage for the exemption is also a little bit higher in comparison to the non-metro cities. The difference is not that much. The difference is only just for 10%. For metro cities it is 50% of basic salary plus dearness allowances. And for those who living in non-metro cities, it is 40% of basic salary plus dearness allowances, right? Please mind that there are few case laws in which it was held that your performance bonus is not a part of basic salary. So it should not be considered for calculation of HRA under section 10, 13A as per rule 2A, right? So your performance bonus, if you are receiving, please don't add it in your basic salary for calculation as per point number B or the C, whichever is relevant to you. Right, for metro cities it is 50% of basic salary plus DA, and for non-metro cities it is 40% of basic salary plus DA. Point number D is actual rent paid minus 10% of basic salary plus dearness allowances. That is rent paid in excess of 10% of salary plus dearness allowances, right? So whatever be the amount is derived out of point number A, B, C and D. The least of these, right? The least amount that is derived out of A, B, C or D is to be taken as the exemption of housing rent allowances, right? Now, what are the documents that you need to have? We receive lot of questions that, sir, what are the documents I need to have, right? I have to declare the rent, right? Because this is being the beginning of the year. I have to give deductions declaration so that my TDS for throughout the coming year will be deducted in a proper legitimate and reasonable manner. It should not be deducted less. It should not be deducted very high. It should be deducted reasonably so that the HRA declaration has to be filed in proper. And what is more important in the taxation laws and tax compliance is the documentation, right? If you are well versed in the documentation, right, the department will raise the query. You'll submit the document, submit the reply, and there will be no big problem for you in future, right? If you are very well versed and you are very good at maintaining the proper documents, right? So let me explain you what are the documents that you must have to claim proper HRA exemption. The first is you must have rent agreement, right? In section 1013A or rule 2A, it is nowhere mentioned that you must have rent agreement, but to substantiate your claim of HRA, you must possess rent agreement duly executed on the stamp paper and duly notarized, right? So it's always better to have rent agreement executed every year, right, between you and your landlord to whom you are paying the rent. Second is, try to obtain monthly rent receipts, right, with a revenue ticket stamp duly signed by your owner, duly signed by the property owner, by the landowner, by the flat owner, right? You must possess rent receipts for all the 12 months. Third is, always pay rent through banking channel, right? Avoid paying rent in cash, right? Because if you pay rent in cash, then it's difficult to explain that to the income tax department that we have paid rent in cash. Department may convince or may not convince. If you paid by bank, then the banking entry would reflect in your bank statement as a debit in your bank account and credit in the landowner's or the flat owner's bank account, right? So you can very easily prove it that you have actually paid the rent. So always try to pay rent by the banking channel. Clear? Right. So these are the important aspects that you need to maintain, right? Always have rent agreement in place. If it is expiring, then please renew it. Execute a new fresh agreement by renewals. Obtain rent receipt and always pay rent through banking channel. You can pay by cash, you can pay by NEFT, you can pay by IMPS, right? So there are a lot of options available these days. Avoid paying rent in cash, right? So these are the documents that you must have. These are the bare minimum documents that you need to have, right? And if your salary structure is complicated and if you have switched jobs multiple times in a year, right? For example, you have switched 3 jobs or 4 jobs in a year and you're finding it cumbersome, complicated to do complete HRA exemption calculation in your case, then it is advisable to take the help of a professional for your HRA exemption calculation so that the tax liability should be optimized, proper tax planning should take place, and the outgo of the taxes should be least, right, by keeping in view all the relevant provisions of the Act. Now let's come to the important case laws. The case laws that we here discuss is the case law of Meena Vaswani versus Assistant Commissioner of Income Tax. The case law is of ITIT Mumbai bench. What the case law says that HRA exemption claimed cannot be allowed under section 1013A based on sham rents, fake rents, payment supported only by rent received from mother, where assessee produced no evidence arising in normal course of happening of transaction of hiring premises, right? So if you are paying rent to your relative, either to your father, to your mother, to your spouse, right, you need to be very, very careful and particular in documentation part, right? Your claim will be accepted only when you have proper document. Either you are paying rent to your relative, always execute rent agreement, obtain rent receipts every month and pay rent through banking channel. And it is also advisable that the same rental income has to be reflected in the income tax return of the owner of the property, right, to whom you are paying the rent, right? So that you can also prove by showing the ITR of the owner that the rental income has been duly declared in the income tax return of the property owner, right? So if the rent payments are just sham only supported by the rent receipt that can be executed as an afterthought during the assessment proceedings, right? So these are the sham rent payments and are not eligible for HRA exemption. So the documentation part, now you can realize that how documentation part is important, right? Let's come to the next case law, that is Bajrang Prasad Ramdharani versus Assistant Commissioner of Income Tax, Circle 14. Case law of Ahmedabad Tribunal. What held in this case law is that assessee living with his wife in house occupied by her and paying rent to her through bank transfers. Now you can analyze the importance of bank transfer, the importance of bank payments, right, would be entitled to exemption under section 1013A. So always try to make payment of HRA, not HRA, sorry, always try to make payment of rent through banking channel. Either the owner, the property owner is your relative or the property owner is not your relative. Sometimes the situation may arise that the property owner would say that no, I'll not going to accept rent payment in banking channel. I'll only going to accept it in cash, right? So please have this clear with the owner of the property before hiring or before finalizing any of the property for lease or for rent. Make them very much clear that I will pay through the banking channel. Would you accept it? If yes, we will ready to take the property on rent. If you're not ready to accept payment in the banking channel, then I'll not go for your property. I'll look for another property, right? So please have this point clear well in advance before finalizing the property for taking it on rent, right? See, the income tax department is these days applying artificial intelligence, right? And using huge data for finding tax escapements and tax evasion, and high income generating assessees or the taxpayers used to pay huge rent and used to claim huge HRA exemptions, right? For the employees who is having packages of crores of rupees, right? So their income tax return may be on the radar of the income tax department because of this house rent allowance exemption, right? Department would definitely ask for the documents that I told you just few minutes back. So please be proper, comply to the laws, comply to the provisions, have proper documentation records with you every year for which you are claiming HRA exemption, right? So this video is all about HRA exemption. If you like this video, click on the like button. If you're not subscribed to the channel, subscribe to it. If you have any query relating to Income Tax Act or any of the provisions of Income Tax Act like HRA or any other thing, then you can post your query in the comment box, right? Take advice of a professional before taking any decision on your taxes. Thank you for watching this video. Thanks a lot. We will keep coming with a lot of knowledgeable, interesting videos like this. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Bye.